My new book is out, The Matthew Challenge, Living Beyond Religion, Christ Beyond Christianity. Now, two questions always come up when somebody writes a book. First, why did you write the book? And the second is, what's in it for you to read the book? So, why did I write it? And I wanted to come up with, that's a great question. I wanted to come up with something really flowery, Christian-y, Jesus-y for the reason I wrote this book. But the reason I wrote it is because I was pissed off. Now, you should never do anything when you're pissed off, especially writing a book. So it's probably a really, really bad reason to write a book, but it's an honest reason. I was pissed off by how I was seemingly seeing so much of the world, especially the Christian world, professing to be doing things in Jesus' name that Jesus himself clearly would never do. So I decided to take a detailed look at what Jesus actually did in order to overlay it against what the loudest voices in Christianity seem to be continuing to do while continuing to claim they are following Jesus at the same time, keeping in mind that in the Bible, Jesus is never actually mad at sinners, which seems to be what these voices want to convince us to do, is be mad at sinners. He only ever gets mad at hypocrites who say one thing and do the opposite. Now, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Defending Jesus is a really bad reason to write a book. Self-righteously taking my stand for Christ never ends well for people. All right, that's all ego-driven. So, if you look in the Bible, Jesus is never happy when people, from an ego standpoint, come take their stand for Jesus, come to his defense as if he couldn't defend himself. In fact, I say in the book that it wouldn't surprise me if one day I could be looking Jesus eyeball to eyeball, and he says this to me. He says, "Dude, I really wish you hadn't done that." It's possible. It could happen. However, defending what the Bible calls the least of these, defending the outcast, the marginalized, the weak, the hungry, aliens, the elderly, well, that's probably a great reason to write a book. I think what you'll see in the book is Jesus' radical inclusivity for those the church abhors. Now, I know inclusivity, that's a word we all hate, especially in conservative circles, often Christian conservative circles. We hate that word, inclusivity. However, if you hate the word, you're not really a fan of the man who spent his lifetime demonstrating that inclusivity was all that mattered. Read the book, which brings up probably the second point. What's in it for you to read the book? Now, if you're the type of person who says, the Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it, well, I suppose this book may not be for you. However, if you have an interest in seeing a Jesus who insists we actually think for ourselves and use our minds instead of just regurgitating church phrases, then this book might be for you. If you have an interest in seeing a Jesus who insisted that mercy trumps the law, and who insists on the radical inclusivity of the outcasts of the world, and who insisted on sacrificial generosity to those who are considered the least of these, even perhaps even your enemies, if that's Jesus is of interest to you, then this book might be of interest to you. Inside this book, and inside the Gospel of Matthew, that's the Jesus I think you'll find. It's what I call Matthew's Jesus. And it's the Jesus who presents to us the Matthew challenge of living beyond religion. And it's the challenge of seeing a Christ who is bigger than Christianity. Now, if you're interested in hearing more about these topics in this venue, and maybe instead of the book, then please subscribe to my channel, because we'll be going through these topics in more detail as time goes on. Thank you.